I'm Melissa Chartrand. I'm here with Joe Quigley, who's been kind enough to join us in studio. Thanks for coming in today, Joe. So I recently met you. You've been helping out at the Geyer Barn over here in Hyannis, and I discovered your many talents. You are a phenomenal cartoonist.
Oh, thank you.
But your past life includes teaching, certainly an advocate for gay rights, and all sorts of other wonderful things that you've been doing in your time here on the Cape. You've lived all over Massachusetts, New York, Oklahoma, correct?
Yep.
Where else am I missing?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. And you've always taught in all of those cities?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And how about cartooning?
That was something I did on the side, waiting for the big break that would make me rich and famous.
Okay, and that's
It
happened.
hasn't happened.
You're rich and famous here
No,
on Cape
famous,
Cod.
but not rich.
Rich in love.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take that.
So let's talk a little bit about your cartooning and when you first discovered that. We were talking off camera about what influenced you to say that wasn't so hard to do.
Originally, as a little kid, it was Captain Bob, when he would do his afternoon show. And one time he showed how to draw his main character, Jasper Jinx, and that's where it was, that's not too hard.
Right.
A couple of circles, a few lines, and embellish them. So I started from that, just dabbling here and there.
And look where it's got you today. Yeah. How did that happen? So you went from cartooning, did you cartoon and draw all through school?
High school I did some cartoons it was a very small high school, so it had a mimeograph newspaper. So I had to learn how to draw in that old mimeograph thing.
Yes.
Okay. So obviously in high school the drawings were crude. And then went on to college and started doing some work for the college newspapers. I went to 2 colleges at different times, of course. And then later on, it was one of those things you had to have a good job before you could experiment, and then eventually you end up doing the good job and the experiment kind of goes to the side. But during teaching I would use it for illustrating ideas, because when I took notes in high school, if there's things I couldn't remember, I'd draw the picture. So when I was taking a test, I just have to think of the picture.
Of the picture.
So I figured that would work with the kids, so then I started doing that. And then I was a union activist, so it didn't take too much time to start doing cartoons for labor and union activity, teachers unions, AFL-CIO, and then community involvement. For a while I did cartoons. When I was teaching in Boston, I did cartoons for the Dorchester Community News, which was a local community newspaper. And that was fun because that's where I learned how to do the real editorial stuff, where you had to, make it classy and not just funny, and make it thoughtful.
Right. It really almost become more of a writing versus cartooning with these editorial, and especially the political cartoons?
In what way do you mean that? My writing, or?
As far as your writing and as far as the cartoon itself and the topic that you cover, and it's really much more than just a quick sketch.
Yeah, what I do, I get to live my dream now.
Okay.
Because I'm no longer teaching, so I get up in the morning, I read the newspapers on the internet, of course, check Facebook because people send you stuff, and then just spend a couple of hours just looking for things, and then an idea something will impress me. And I figure, okay, I'll draw a picture on that and think of, originally it was just going to be pictures, but on Cape Cod Today, I did one cartoon where I figured somebody needed an explanation or they wouldn't get it because it was kind of subtle. And then, so now it consists of a cartoon and more often than not, a little essay.
Right.
Yeah.
To go with it.
Yeah.
And because you take some complex issues there and break them down into a quick cartoon.
Well, you have with the political cartoons, you have to take like a very complicated issue,
right, and
sum it up real quick so even the most illiterate person can understand what they couldn't get from the rest of the paper.
Exactly.
They get from the cartoon.
But these ideas, and certainly there's plenty of fodder for that in the papers on a daily basis. I imagine you're never at a loss for...
You're not kidding.
And I bet you see everything as you could very easily depict in a cartoon throughout the course of your day.
Well, when you watch the news, it's like, I can't believe they just said that.
Right.
And it's like, oh, there's tomorrow. You know? Then, of course, sometimes I ride the bus, so that's where you get the faces for
Sure.
a lot of the cartoon characters.
Have you ever gotten in trouble for anything that you've done?
I'm proud to say that in Los Angeles, when I was working, I was teaching and doing cartoons for the Teachers Union paper. We took on the school board because they were just being nasty. Okay, but it seems to be a common thing.
Yeah.
But they were just being nasty. And we were up for contract negotiations, and they just weren't moving. They were holding back. And so the cartoons got more and more pointed the longer they held off. So they finally went to the president of the union and told him that if they stopped publishing my cartoons in their paper, then it would help with the negotiations. And I figured, okay, what do you do about that? And so they came to me and they asked, would you give up the cartoons? And I said, no. Because if they're that worried about them, then they're working.
Correct.
And the president's thing was, we're glad you said that because we were hoping you would say no. So I think that's about the biggest trouble, because then they also wanted to fire me or see if they could find a way to get rid of me from teaching because of the cartoons. But that was the same year that Jerry Falwell versus the Hustler, whatever, I forget his name now. But it was the same year the Supreme Court ruled that you can't punish somebody for a political cartoon because obviously it's a cartoon.
Right.
So that stopped any motion on their part to do anything to me. But I think that was about the biggest. You get nasty comments from people.
Right.
Like on the comment section.
But you can't really take those I'm sure
Oh, no,
you don't
no.
take those personally.
No, that's their job. They love doing that.
It's good, whether positive or negative, it's good to,
Yeah, at least
good
you know,
to have
yeah.
conversation
And then you get
going.
the fans, you get the same people that
Sure.
write the same sort of stuff, and they say, oh, they're watching. I checked mine this morning, and so far one of them hasn't written, and I'm kind of like,
Worried now.
yeah, like what happened to him?
But let's talk about something else that's big. I wish that we could have a lot more time, and we really don't. But you just you received an award that you fluffed off as really no big deal.
Not that way. To me.
To you.
To me, yeah.
So please share with our viewers. This is just so inspirational, the work that you did. As we mentioned, you've lived in various locations. You lived in Oklahoma for 18 years. You were a teacher there, and really set the standard for anti-bullying at the school and protecting the students.
Yeah, that was way back in the 90s. A teacher came to me because there had been a student that had been killed, and she wasn't too sure if it was an actual accidental getting hit by a car or was it this kid's way out. And I started looking into bullying, and there's a lot of information that was out there, but school boards weren't looking at it. They weren't paying attention. Kids will be kids. And I wrote a simple suggestion that we have an in-service about gay and lesbian kids, and this could help maybe reduce some of the bullying and maybe some of the suicides. And they just fluffed it off because Oklahoma is extremely conservative, and this was just not in their radar. So it took 12 years to fight with the school board, because you had to fight with the politicians and the school board's fear of not getting reelected. But eventually they put in sexual orientation and gender identity, which was a big thing, the second one,
That was
gender
huge,
identity.
absolutely.
Yeah. And for me, it was just like asking the first question was, we're supposed to get a simple yes answer, we'll look into it, or let's investigate this, or, possibly. Instead, it was like, nope, that's not how we do things here.
Right.
And it's like, wait, so you want kids to kill themselves? Okay. So it started snowballing, and eventually it was like you couldn't give it up because there was small progress being made.
Sure.
And if you stopped anywhere along the line, it's either as far as you were going to get or they'd fall back. So it took about 12 years, but finally they came around and they did it.
And they did, which was huge, and serves as a model for many schools across the country. I think so. You're very modest.
That's where I miss it.
Very, yeah.
There's the Angie Debo Award. She was a historian in Oklahoma, and she wrote a lot of stuff about Oklahoma, like the way the Indians were treated. And some of her stuff didn't get published until almost, she was dead. It was like in the 70s they started publishing. She died in the 80s. They started publishing some of her stuff because some of the nasty people that she wrote about had still been alive. And of course they controlled everything. So now that they were dead, you could publish the book and they wouldn't be around to object.
So this
they
was,
named the award
they
after
named
her.
a award after her, and
Yeah.
you just recently received that in January, and I think that's very well deserved.
I blush.
At any rate, our viewers can catch your daily blogs and your cartoons at CapeCodToday.com. Is that correct?
Yeah.
But do you have a website as well that they can?
Me?
Yes.
No, I haven't gotten that far.
Okay,
in
or to see some of
computer.
your work anywhere else, or that's the best spot for them to take a peek at your work?
A gentle plug would be Zazzle.com.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I have pictures that they can put on T-shirts and customize the T-shirt around the picture.
Great. Well, I encourage our viewers to do that, as well
Would
as
you?
I will do that, as well as come over to the Geyer Barn and see you there.
Yeah,
You're very
yeah.
kind in volunteering your time to help support. That, of course, is our year-round community center for classes and workshops and exhibits.
Known nationally now
No, nationally.
through Facebook.
That's right. Well, Joe, thank you so much for your time today. Congratulations again on
Thanks.
that award, and I appreciate your time coming in.
Thanks.
For Joe Quigley, I'm Melissa Chartrand, wishing you all an artful day.